Today we're looking at the Pilgrims. Hello, welcome to the Daily Bellringer. Please don't forget to subscribe and take a look at the questions down in the description. So when you think about the Pilgrims, you probably immediately think about Thanksgiving dinner or possibly dressing up like a pilgrim in your first grade class. But today we're going to take a look at the Pilgrims and find out there's a lot more to them than just simply turkey dinner and black construction paper hats. In order to understand the Pilgrims, we have to look at what was happening within the Church of England. Up until the 1500s, just about everyone in England was of the Catholic faith. However, in 1534, King Henry VIII wanted to divorce his wife, and the Pope would not allow it. So Henry VIII decided to split from the Catholic Church and create his own church, the Church of England, and made himself the head of the church. Now, the problem was, if you did not believe in what the Church of England taught, that meant you were rebelling against the king, which meant you were in trouble. And many Englishmen were persecuted or punished for not going along with what the church taught. So was the case of the Pilgrims. The Pilgrims were called separatists because they believed the Church of England was doomed, and they wanted to separate or start their own churches. As you can imagine, this was difficult to do in England, so they looked for other places to move. First, many of them moved to the Netherlands, where they found religious freedom but had trouble finding work, and also there were concerns that their children were being influenced by the culture in the Netherlands. So they sought a place where they felt they could start an entirely new community. Thus, they contacted the Virginia Company of London and made arrangements to settle in Virginia and give the Virginia Company a share of any profits they made there. So on September 6, 1620, 35 pilgrims, along with, I believe, 102 others that were 102 total on the ship, boarded the Mayflower and began the journey to the New World. Over the next few months, the pilgrims made their way to America, arriving near Cape Cod Bay in early November of 1620. Problem was, they realized they were far north of where they were supposed to be in Virginia, but the winter was coming and they needed to go ashore. And so on November 11th, 1620, they went ashore at a place called Plymouth, named after the port where they had left from England. Interestingly, they realized they were outside of the boundaries or laws of the Virginia Company, so before they got off the ship, they wrote a formal document known as the Mayflower Compact. And in this, they pledged their loyalty to England, but also agreed to obey the laws that were passed for the good of the colony. Many historians consider the Mayflower Compact to be the first constitution written in America and was a sign of self-government that would come in later years. And one little side note in history, today we've had 9 U.S. presidents that can trace their family lineage directly to passengers on the Mayflower. Now, just as Jamestown, the Pilgrims landed in a hostile land that they were unfamiliar with, and the winter was setting in. So, just like at Jamestown, almost half of the Pilgrims died in the first winter. And there were times where they barely had enough people to be working on shelter or gathering food. And again, similar to Jamestown, the Pilgrims likely would not have survived if it had not been for the generosity of Native Americans in the area. In the spring of 1621, members of the Wampanoag tribes, Squanto and Samoset, befriended the Pilgrims and began teaching them how to grow crops in the sandy soil and how to hunt and fish in the area. Years before, Squanto had been captured and sold into slavery by English explorers and taken to Europe, where he had learned to speak English. Samoset had learned to speak English from a fisherman in modern-day Maine. Samoset was actually the first to communicate with the Pilgrims when he basically walked right into the middle of the Pilgrims' village and greeted them in English, shocking all of the Pilgrims. In spring of 1621, the Pilgrims signed a treaty or a peace agreement with Massasoit, the chief of the Wampanoag. And of course, in November 1621, the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag had a feast to celebrate the harvest they had taken in that year. Although they didn't eat turkey, rather they ate venison or deer, duck, lobster, and clams. And that is basically the history of the Pilgrims. Now, hopefully, you're asking yourself, well, what happened to them then? Basically, they became overshadowed or really outpopulated by the Puritans that would start arriving in the area throughout the 1630s and 1640s. Many of them simply joined the Puritan community, and furthermore, tensions with Native Americans that arose once the Puritans arrived led to a small war known as King Philip's War that broke out and basically ended the Pilgrims community. So with that, hopefully you learned something, and thanks for watching.